Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the incredible Springbok career of Franco Smith. Franco, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Now, before we begin our conversation, let's take a look at this week's trivia question. In 1997, the Springboks lost the second test to the British and Irish Lions 18-15. How many of South Africa's points came from the boot? Now, if you know the answer to the question, you can put it in the comment section down below. We'll also find out if Franco knows the answer, but we'll do that at the end of our conversation. Franco, I'd like to start, funny enough, in 1997, when you made your Springbok Test debut against Scotland. Did Nick Mallett talk to you in the week leading up and indicate that you were going to get a chance?
Oh, look, Nick was obviously excited. I was my second tour with him, in the first tour in 96. He was the dirt tracker head coach, if I can put it in that way. So we already had a good relation, played a couple of rounds of golf before together, and obviously leading into that game, there was an injury to Henry Honiball. I came on the bench with Danny de Beer starting. So he did mention, obviously, this is going to be a chance. I don't think he intended me to play as long as I did. Obviously, Yanni got injured just before halftime, and the swap was made at halftime. So, I've had after that various conversations before I went on, yes, with him. But that specific day of that week, I think Rob van der Valk was the manager, and I think he already backed me a little bit to have a go. And because I've obviously during the tour I was quite in good form, and that allowed me then a little bit of freedom to just go and express myself. The fortune also was that the scoreline was reasonably well set at that stage. So good to just go out there and express myself, which helped.
And how special was it to be involved in such an historic victory?
Oh, fantastic. I mean, later in my career, and if I look back at the try that I've scored, it was fantastic. I think James Small scored his record-breaking try as well, and I had a bit of a hand in that. It was fantastic. It was just the legends of those of that game. To be able to be out there on the field with them. There was so many guys that then kicked on and played in that 17 test that was unbeaten. So just to have been a part from that. With him in that specific game was absolutely something I'll cherish forever.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not hit the like button?
As you mentioned, you'd actually been part of the Springbok squad since 1996 on that end-of-year tour. How frustrating was it that you had to wait a year before getting your first test cap?
No, I didn't see it as frustration. I more saw that as motivation, and later on, motivation always developed into determination. So a very good opportunity for me to learn and understand that I'm suddenly rated in South African rugby to be able to play at that level. So I saw that as motivation above all, and not really as frustration, and then thankful that it eventually happened.
The Springboks had actually had quite a difficult 1997, losing to the British and Irish Lions. There were some heavy defeats in the Tri-Nations as well, but things turned around beautifully on that end-of-year tour with some memorable victories. How enjoyable was the atmosphere on that tour?
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely recall the game at Parc des Princes against France. It was a very special victory, I think, on the week and I just felt that was a big build of a big start. I must just break a bit of a lance for Karl du Plessis and Gert, who was involved with the last test match I was involved also that week when we played Australia at home in the last Tri-Nations match, and was meant to be on the bench, and just at the last moment on the day of the game got swapped out for Bram Elser for a 5-2 split back then. So just missed out there. But we also that evening, I think we also scored around 60 points, a very good game. And that actually led into, in that tour, and that set that the start of the Nick Mallett era up. With some very talented players, and with his Nick's mindset of allowing us to express ourselves out in the field, that obviously on that tour settled basically the nerves, and that also gave us an opportunity to really express ourselves when we're out in the field.
And then you made your first start for the Springboks the following year against Ireland. I've had a couple of ex-Springboks on the show who have told me that they felt that they were only really Springboks once they actually started a test match for their country. What would you say?
Yeah, I agree. I think you've been officially accepted in in Springbok rugby, but by the public and by the team. If you had a start, it's obviously obviously the feeling back then. I don't know if it's still like that, but I agree. Having your first start really, was your initiation into the real world of a Springbok player. So yes, obviously it was fantastic to make a debut off the bench. Fantastic to be a part even the year before, but you really get accepted into the environment once you've had a start. And I think that day specifically was a very hard-fought battle at Loftus. So that was really good to be a part of that.
And let's talk about that Wales test match, the one in which we annihilated them 96-13. What is it like playing in a match when you're beating an opponent so easily?
Yeah, look, it's amazing that you end up throwing a skip pass and it works. You know, I've got also my coaching career now, a big conversation around what is confidence, you know, and I think confidence is from my perspective, the respect the opposition gives you, which allows you more time on the ball, which allows you to make better decisions, and the execution of the passing and your lineouts, everything just function better. And I think that's how confidence grows. So the fact that we got a bit of an aura after the good tour in end of 97, the lead up into the by beating Ireland and then go into the Wales game, and obviously that helped a lot for the respect they had for us, and with that, the respect that they had for us, and the fact that we played at Loftus, and the fact that we had a bit of an aura, they gave us a lot of respect. I think our execution, we were positive and excited to play Brandon. The more time we had on the ball, the better decisions we made, and that was obviously what led to the high-scoring game.
And then for the Tri-Nations, you moved back onto the bench, but came off to play at inside centre. How special was it, beating New Zealand in New Zealand?
Oh, that's obviously fantastic. I got injured last action of the game against Wales, pulled my hamstring, literally the last. Tried to get back and ready. I was picked for the England test the week after. Then obviously, I had to withdraw on the Wednesday. And then my next chance only came in the Tri-Nations, and then to go down to Athletic Park in Wellington and beat the All Blacks there was fantastic. I mean, Nick actually had a word for me before I went on in Andre Sneymann's place, and it was all about not missing a tackle. John Loma was at that stage running riot, and I remember they've had Frank Bunce Walter Little on the inside centre, and a young Carlos Spencer just played in Merton's place at that stage. So they were actually carrying the ball hard, playing in the right zones of the field with the ball in hand. And I think that was the message, I should make my tackles this game and at halftime. So, but then, to end up winning there was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it will always be some of the big memories for me. I think it was the 50th test that South Africa and New Zealand played each other. So to be a part of that and to get given a special cap that day was really a highlight.
And how about that come from behind win against the very same All Blacks in Durban?
Yeah, well, then we come back to South Africa in Durban. We were down 23-5, 25 minutes left. Myself, Bobby Skinstad, Ollie Leroux, I think, and Andrew Aitken. We went on a little bit later, I think. And then, we got a little bit of width to the game, got around them. So very good try by US, just obviously again igniting everything, and then a powerful drive try by James Dalton. And then obviously it was unbelievable to come from in a test match specifically from that far behind. But that stage just showed what those players were about. The character of the team obviously was the main thing, and the will and want not to lose and to make South Africa proud was obviously the main ingredients in that game.
The following week, we beat the Wallabies in Johannesburg to seal the title. Describe the feeling of winning the Tri-Nations.
I actually went on in the last minute or 2 minutes. I can't even remember. I didn't touch the ball once, but I was out there. And when the final whistle got low, it was absolutely fantastic to see that 60,000, 70,000 people at Ellis Park on their feet cheering us on. And what a big moment at that stage, especially after the previous year. Worst or not good performance against the British and Irish Lions, just within a year to pay public all their support and just to give something, to establish again the aura around Springbok rugby that was necessary. So yes, and to be a part of that, obviously, I think that everybody that's been on the show before and will be on the show after me would obviously, will reiterate the fact that it's an unbelievable sensation standing out in the middle of that field and hearing South Africa cheer you on.
And then on the end of year 2 in 1998, we were still winning, but maybe the performances were not as good. And again, I've heard several theories as to why that may be. Some people say it was end of year fatigue. Other people say there was interference from Alan Solomons with regards to Bobby Skinstad. I'd be very interested to hear what your take is.
Yeah, I think I can agree a little bit on the fatigue side of things. Obviously, it was the first, I think that year I spent 29 weeks away from home. Shared the room with Krainer Otto, so I lived more with him than I did with my wife that year. So yeah, that might be. The Bulls actually won the Currie Cup that season, and I think there was a lot of hype and excitement late into the season, and that might have led to it. Then remember, if you start winning, also the opposition's mindset change when they play. We always look at what we need, what we bring to the game, or what we as a team get wrong. But other teams do get it right as well, So I thought the Wembley game specifically, Wales prepared really well for us. Graham Henry was coaching back then. They've had the most motivation of having been beaten with 96 points the previous year. I still feel that they were good that day. I played centre that week, that game there, and I just thought they were really good, very well prepared for what we were bringing, and they were obviously matching us physically, which was what was the opposite of what we've experienced in South Africa. So I think that obviously might have felt that we got it wrong from the start, and that led maybe to a little bit of doubt going into the Scotland test. I got left out of the team for the week after against Scotland, and obviously Andre Venter also got left out. There was some change in that regard. So yes, I think that might have been from my perspective, a combination of things. A little bit of fatigue, a good start by Wales, not necessarily a start by us, a little bit of doubt in the coaching realm. And then obviously that might have filtered through to us. And again, it was a Grand Slam tour. We haven't lost for so long. So what is the big pressure that always comes off winning too much is that fear of losing starts growing. You're not playing to win anymore. You start getting more concerned around not losing. And we were already talking about the Grand Slam. We've signed jerseys and balls with the Grand Slam team. And we haven't beaten England at Twickenham yet. So a lot of expectations. So in my coaching profile now as well, I make sure that we manage from lessons learned out of that tour. As one, give credit where credit's due. If the opposition's going to prepare for everything, obviously, and then make sure that you that the expectation doesn't overwhelm you. I think that is the big thing that maybe built up. Sometimes there's a reason teams after a certain amount of games lose. That's otherwise Tiger Woods would have still been number one in the world. The expectation and everything that comes and builds around that does influence the players that's out there. Remember, it's individuals that must make decisions with the ball or without them. Do I pass it? Do I keep it? What is the pressure situation of the teams that you play against? What do they allow you to do? What not? As much respect maybe as other teams that were giving us at the start of 98, the less respect they gave us towards the end. And I think that forced us a little bit into, some errors, and that obviously rolled a little bit over into the year after.
How disappointed were you to be dropped after that Wales test?
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed. I think I had a good season at that stage. I was about to play a number of tests after the Ireland and then the Wales, and then I was actually picked for the wet test at Newlands. Got injured. That was frustrating. Then clawed my way back through a good Currie Cup. Got picked from the start. I thought this is the opportunity, and then obviously, I got changed over with Christian Stewart. He was a little bit later in his career already, and And at that stage, obviously felt, from my perspective, not that I don't, I was really happy for Christian in that regard, that he got another chance late in his career. But from my perspective, I felt at that moment, there was a bit of a step backwards. I thought I should have been back maybe for another game or two. If I was going to be the future in that role, my strengths were more with the ball in hand. I've got a look to play mindset. I gave the team a lot of width, which is not always the best thing. And the look to play mindset is not always the best thing in Test match rugby. It can be, depends on how your team's what your team's game model is. And I thought we were progressing in that regard. But then obviously to be left out then, just hampered a little bit. I did feel I became a bit of a jack of all trades, that the fact that I can play everything but was not master of one specific position, which always allowed me to be picked on the bench first. But I thought maybe the opportunity there to start more often was then out of the door.
So Franco, I have to ask you, with you being a coach yourself now these days, when you have a player in your squad who is equally as versatile as what you were as a player, does that make it easier for you to sort of know what to do?
Definitely. I've adapted my coaching style to that. I'll work with 6-2 splits only. 26 of the 27 games that I've coached this season with Glasgow Warriors, I've picked a 6-2 split, and it's about hybrid backs, players that can play in different roles. If it's wings that can play fullback, or centers that can play fly-half, or nines that can play wing, that doesn't matter. I prefer that. I think the big battle lies in the front, and you need to be able to, to manage those players' game time as much as you can. With the idea to increase the number of actions and the intensity, but therefore you need backs that can play more than one role, so that if you get some injuries or there's something unforeseen that's happened, that you are covered. So yes, obviously that mindset for me is important. Although you do have your specialist players, I still feel to be able to play more than one position makes you immiscible to the team, and it obviously gives the team the best chance to maybe in other parts of the game be dominant.
How disappointed were you to miss the 1999 Rugby World Cup?
I must say I was shattered in that regard. Obviously, being part till the last game, I played against the All Blacks, and when Andre Snyman and myself started against the All Blacks at Loftus and in '99 in the Tri Nations, Andre broke his ankle, and Flecky actually came on in the outside centre. So I felt my medial knee ligaments gone before halftime. Played the whole second half just to make sure that I gave myself the best chance. Unfortunately, then missed out in the narrow win against Australia and Cape Town the week after. And then obviously I was convinced to be part. That is what I understood also from everybody. And then to get left out just before the start was really disappointing. I was involved basically in all the Springbok games between the two World Cups, but never to have gone to one is between 95 and 99. I was in the setup and in the system. It was disappointing, obviously, and but I understood the reasons back then. I made a wrong call, maybe to leave for Newport straight after that because of disappointment. And for all the young guys watching this, this is the only decision I've ever made in my life on emotion, and I think that's wrong. You must always have you must be led in different ways. So but I was pretty disappointed.
And in terms of philosophy and approach, how would you describe Nick Mallett as a coach?
Nick was a very passionate guy. I must say I had a bit of Andre Markov obviously in the beginning, and then there's the couple of weeks with Karel, and that was the reason I'm mentioning that, is that I think Nick was a little bit different from Karel. I thought Karel had a lot of insight and philosophy and a good philosophy. Nick was more passionate and all about about contributing, getting a number of actions, being involved, physically dominating the opposition, and that suited the way I played. This suited the way the qualities of as a player that I had. I think Alan Solomons did add a little bit of braveness to what Nick was coaching, in the sense that he allowed the backs to be a little bit more skillful, more passes. He actually, all our drills and the way we warmed up and prepped and skill sets was all about making a pass, which I really enjoyed. So Nick was the hard, tough coach that give you that sense of passion and the non-negotiable attitude that he had. I think Solly added a little bit more of the flair around our game, which I also liked. So yeah, in that era, both those coaches in that regard was quite influential in the way I see rugby now.
Franco, there was definitely a theory at the time that you were being groomed to take over from Henry Honiball, equally able to play at 12 and 10, and with Henry retiring after 99, you would then have been the natural successor. I'm interested to hear if that was indeed the case.
I think that was Andre Markgraaf's suggestion when he picked me in 96. The idea was for me and a guy like Boeta Wessels maybe we were a little bit more straight running flyers, a little bit more physical. We took the ball to the line, a little bit more the alternative. Rugby was developing in that way at that stage. Henry was leading it in the world rugby, maybe around physicality, number of tackles that he made. Always the 10th channel was always a point of dispute because of the 10s were usually not the most physical guys of the team selection, and that's where teams always got their way in through the lack of contact domination. So because we were a little bit more physical in that area, and Lem specifically, Henry, he specifically set a high standard there, and that obviously is something that I like to do. And then through his conversation in 96, when he picked me the first time on that tour, it was about us being a little bit more physical in that regard. Instead of taking the 3 points always, we're going to go to the corners and see if we can't keep the ball in the positions 22 to score tries, more become 7-14-21 teams instead of 3-6-9 teams. And I think that was obviously, that influenced world rugby at that stage. I think a lot of the teams adapted to have more physical flyers after that because of the reward that they've seen from it.
So what was your favorite position?
It depended. A lot of people have asked me this, and I still love to play 12, but I enjoyed playing 10. So there was no real, it depends on which team and what is the makeup of the team was. In the Bulls team, I fitted nicely in the 10 at that. I had Andre Snyman and Daniel van Schalkwyk on my outside. I could get a lot of width on it, and the ball goes through my hands quickly. Where if you have Henry Honiball or even Jannie de Beer on your inside and you're the 12, you can straighten a little bit and still create a little bit of play one channel wider. So and they've in the 10, 12 era, you actually carry the ball a little bit more in contact, which I really liked. It was good to go forward there and just sometimes just make contact without making the right decision. So I really enjoyed playing both. Depended for me, looking back at my career, obviously what the makeup of the team was, and I didn't mind slotting in the various roles then.
Who was your toughest opponent?
Well, it will be funny enough. I think the biggest collision was Scott Gibbs. I thought when we played Wales at Wembley, it was one of the biggest collisions I've had, Scott Gibbs. But I always thought from a playing perspective and the type of player, I think Carlos Spencer was one of the players that I felt that had always asked the question: was he a little bit inaccurate Test match time? Yes, definitely. I don't think he was always the best Test match option, but he was challenging around the park, asking questions, and him being a threat, but also all four players in a circle around him. So yeah, definitely in that regard, it was good to have played my last game, professional game, also against him. So maybe he stands out in that regard.
Is there a particularly funny moment that you can share with us from your time with the Springboks?
Yeah, more of what goes on tour stays on tour. Yes, I've got a story. Okay. So I think in 1998 we were waiting in the Sandton Holiday Inn. I think we were waiting for the game that was going to be played that evening. So a bunch of us were having coffee around in the foyer. With us was Peter Rousseau as well, and a couple of tourists were also hanging and mingling around in the foyer. So one guy stepped up to Peter and said, Peter, he stepped up and he didn't say Peter, he said, can you take a photo? And Peter said, yes, for sure. And he stood up and he went and stand in the photo. And the guy said, no, can you take the photo? So that was actually quite funny. We were quite used to back then being photographed with the public, and it's understandable why he got it wrong. But it was actually quite funny that he assumed immediately that he was not going to take the picture. And so, yeah, that was, if I can, I think that was an excellent funny story, if I can put it in that way.
I'm not sure if you're allowed to answer this question with you being a coach currently, but is there a current player who you particularly admire?
I think currently there's a bunch of young South African outside backs and decision makers with physical ability. I think Cheslin Kolbe just opened the door for all those Cheslin-like players in world rugby at the moment. And I think there's a bunch of them. If they wear a scrum cap and they're under 5 foot, then you must know they are really dangerous.
And as we mentioned, you are coaching these days with the Glasgow Warriors in the URC. And I should say many congratulations, actually, Franco, because you have been named just in the last 2 days at the time of recording this interview, the URC Coach of the Year. So well done on that. May I ask you, what else are you up to these days?
Oh, thank you very much. No, I'm like I said, I'm now heading back to South Africa, and I think by the time that the people will see this, I'll be back in South Africa. Hoping to have a look at the Junior World Cup, which will be played in Stellenbosch. Obviously, I've set myself a challenge to learn something new every day. So I'm out there looking for some information, looking for ways to upskill myself, but not just as a rugby person, but also in life. So there's a bunch of challenges that I've put out for myself in South Africa now. Until we back up, our preseason will start in the beginning of August. So there's a bit of a period at home. My family and my daughter and my wife lives in South Africa most of the year due to the fact that she's still at school, and it'll be good to spend a bit of time with them. And hopefully my other boy will be in the South African under-20 squad. Hopefully that will be good to catch up with him. And just, like I said, I'm trying to upskill myself, learn a bit, and always take something home with me, even if it's not to, if it's to learn what not to do. So hopefully this will be a nice learning week. I didn't have that opportunity lately through COVID, and the fact that I was internationally, I worked as an international role and as a performance director. Didn't have much time. It was a little bit more occupied day to day. So this break in the URC is actually setting me nicely up to become hopefully better.
Okay, Franco, let's finish with the trivia question. In 1997, the Springboks lost the second test to the British and Irish Lions 18-15. How many of South Africa's points came from the boot? Do you know the answer, Franco?
I think all of them.
Well, then you're really not going to believe this. The answer is, in fact, 0. Not 1 point came from the boot. 3 tries, Andre Joubert, Percy Montgomery, and Joost van der Westhuizen couldn't convert any of the tries. We couldn't kick over a penalty, and that's why we ultimately lost.
Oh, fantastic. So I couldn't remember. I wasn't involved, and I think Yanni de Beer was playing, so that's immediately come to my mind that I thought he maybe kicked 9 penalties, or was it 6 penalties? Yeah.
Franco, let me say it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby today, an absolute pleasure, and I hope that we can have you on again in the future.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for having me. It's been a real privilege.
Last time on Front Row Rugby, I had former Tri-Nations champion Brayton Paulser on the show. You can go and watch that video. It's appearing on your screen right now. Next time, I'll have 1995 Rugby World Cup winner Gavin Johnson.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that video, why not tackle the like button? You can also subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any content from Front Row Rugby. See you next time.